Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Adjustment meeting on November 8th. Jamie, if you could please take the roll of the board members.
Mr. Cooper?
Present.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Mead?
Here.
Ms. Rathburn? Here. Mr. Stressel?
Here.
Vice Chair Wolf?
Here.
Mr. Hergopian is here, and Chair Elfman.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Great, thanks. We're going to go to the Pledge of Allegiance. Bob, if you could lead us in it.
Everybody, please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Dwayne, if you could please introduce who you have at your table. Starting with yourself.
Oh,
just say hi.
well, I'll introduce myself.
Ahmad Malik, zoning administrator. I have Bert Ford, the zoning chief, and James Hollingworth, our zoning plan reviewer.
Perfect. Thank you. So let's do an approval of the minutes. Does anybody have any changes or alterations they want to make? Hearing none, take a motion for approval.
Chairman, so moved.
Okay, motion and a second. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Great. In that case, we're going to start our hearing. Each member of the public that wishes to speak after each item is presented and discussed by the board will have 3 minutes per item. Representatives of associations and groups will have 5 minutes. Our first case, case number 230-80004. Do we have a respondent? The address, 2500 Riverland Road?
Sure.
Okay. Actually, before we do that, we need to swear you in, and then we need to have any disclosures.
Anyone who intends to speak, please raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm any testimony you give at this public hearing will be truthful and accurate? Yes. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Let's go through disclosures. Milton? Doug? Bob?
Nothing.
Caldwell?
Been by the property?
Fred?
Yeah, as I stated last month, drove by the property.
Pat? Nothing. And I drove by the property myself as well. Okay, sir, if you would like to come up, state your name, relation to the property, and...
My name is Avi Schwal. I'm an owner of 2500 Riverland Road, and we are asking for some variance. We would like to put there a beautiful home, and I don't know if everybody has the plans or not.
We do.
They do. As you could see at the plan, we're planning to keep the size and actually the foundation of this property, just build it up from the foundation up. We would like we're asking to raise the first floor to a 10-foot, and then we have another 10 foot above that to have a nice high ceiling. We want to build there a beautiful high-class end property, and it's a huge lot over there. It's a beautiful corner property, and that's what we want to do to improve all the area there and to make this happening, to have a beautiful house there. Oh, one more thing. I'm sorry. We're asking for, we have a garage, an unattached garage over there, and we would like to put there an apartment above the garage for a nanny, or if somebody has somebody to sleep over, instead of using the house, they could use the apartment above the garage. Is a caregiver or whatever. Whoever needs it, to have an apartment, very useful over there. And we do have enough space over there to do so. And that's about what we're asking, if the board will consider this and having us build that kind of a beautiful house there.
Okay. Sir, just stand there one moment. I don't see anybody in the audience, but is there anybody from the member of the public that wishes to speak? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the board. I'm sure there's going to be some questions.
Very good.
Go ahead.
First of all, my understanding is the variances for the increase in the height of the second story of the
Sorry,
building.
1 second, Bob. Sir, if you could come back, because we're going to need you on the microphone.
When I was reviewing your presentation, your narrative, you had a statement inside your narrative that we are aware that the code will be changing in February regarding the height to a higher feet, and we are just asking for this sooner. I'd like clarification of that. Is that true, or I don't know anything about that? And maybe that's something that stuck out with me on the written comments.
I hear that the building department will change the variance around this area, and it will be higher than usual. And I don't know when it's going to take effect. So we are asking a little bit maybe before that, before they will decide to do so.
Well, you said in February.
In February, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Ma'am, if you want, you could stand up there and speak
Come
with
next
him.
to me.
We'll let you,
Come next to me. I'm not going to hurt you.
if you could please state your name as well.
Hi, I'm Nicole Delgado. I'm his representative agent.
Okay, great. So we'll have you both up there. So,
Thanks.
Again,
Is that a question
for
for
a point
staff?
of clarification of staff, is that
Yes. Yes, board. One of the things, in this neighborhoods, the maximum height they can go is 2 floors, and each floor is 10 feet. They can't go more than 20 feet, plus and minus. So we are trying to change the height. We are in the process. The planning division is rewriting the code and is a process of, back and forth is going on. And once, as expected, maybe January, February, once it's changed, the people might be able to go up to 35 feet. Up to the city, and finally it would be with the city commission for the approval. It's not us. We are just rewriting the code, but the hearings and all that stuff has to be approved by planning and zoning board and the city commission.
So the accuracy of their statement that the height is going to change at some point in the future, given the commission might, if they approve it, is accurate. But we don't know the date or if that's going to get approved yet.
That's correct. We can rewrite the code, but it's the planning and
commission,
zoning board and
yeah,
the commission
correct,
for the
correct.
approval.
Yeah, it's irrelevant unless the city commission approves the zoning change.
That's correct.
So I don't think we can base our decision tonight on what ifs is going to happen in February. The question to Dwayne is, if it were turned down tonight and the code is actually revised next year, they can get a building permit right off the bat, can they not?
If I understand your question, you're saying if it's approved tonight, they can go
No,
ahead.
if we voted
it's
against
denied-
it tonight and denied the variance for the additional height, and the code is modified and approved by the city commission next year, they can come back and get a building permit as long as they conform to the new code.
Presuming that their proposed development meets the requirements of the new
Right.
code, yes.
Okay.
Is there another question?
Yeah,
Fred? Fred, you can drop the
Yeah,
mic
I
down.
actually did, because it had to do with the second floor of the garage, because it has a kitchen in it. And I was questioning whether or not they can have a kitchen and a second structure on the same piece of property. Sounds like a duplex almost.
Well-
It's a great big duplex.
That was my question, but I have two questions, but following up with Fred, that was my question, is a granny flat, which this is what, in a single-family zoning area, my recollection is that you're allowed to have a granny flat, but it has to be for a member of your family or a servant.
It would be for the caretaker
Caretaker
or nanny or whoever,
Yeah, Mohammed, we'll
That-
let you answer that question.
That's how it was presented to us for the guests.
For
So-
guests, that's a different story.
Yeah, member. Their own personal guests.
A
So.
point of information for the board, and one thing that gets often confused when we talk about granny flats is we have a property tax exemption for granny flats, which has those stipulations on it. But a lot of times those aren't articulated in the city code and rules, but they are for the property appraiser's office. And I'm real familiar with it because I helped write that thing years ago. But when we made it effective in Broward County, so with a parent or grandparent, a lot of that times that you're referring to what the property appraiser does for exemptions on that property.
No, what I'm talking about is the zoning code for I don't know what the zoning on this one is, but the zoning code for a single-family home allows a granny flat, but you cannot rent it, and it can't be for anyone that's it has to be a member of your family or a servant, is the way it's in the code.
Right.
And
That's
So, Dwayne Spencer, Deputy City Attorney, I'll allow the zoning administrator to speak to what the code provides, but the Florida legislature recently amended the Florida statute to allow for affordable for accessory dwelling units to be used for affordable housing as well. So just wanted to.
Do they have to go through a process to do that?
We're looking at a process with regards to amending our code.
Right, but at the current time,
Correct.
it is what it is, and it's
Yes.
either your family member or your servant.
Correct.
Okay.
It would be, I guess, a servant is what we were, no, I guess.
I guess servant.
It will be your caretaker or the groundskeeper is what you will call it, I guess. I don't know. It's a big lot, so it's not something that someone can just hire someone to come a day. They actually need to live on site to keep the property in good standing.
Sounds like
Mohammed, a question for you. Is there any decision that we do today that could be in violation of something else? If we approve it, does this change anything that would already be in effect through the city code?
Not that I know of.
If I can clarify, since the request is with regards to two code sections and not with regards to the actual use of the property, this board is not approving the use, even though the applicant stated on the record his intended use. That's not relevant to what you would be considering for approval. And he cannot use this statement that he made tonight to suggest that this board approved the use of this accessory dwelling or accessory building as an accessory dwelling.
Okay, great. That's what I was looking for clarification.
So I wanna have a clarification on it. So if possible, we are able to do the second room or whatever on top of the garage, and that will be considered a separate, like a service house or whatever.
For the purposes of clarification, this board is not approving the use of your accessory building as a second unit or a dwelling unit. The only thing that you have come before this board for is the yard encroachment and the height. And that is the only decision that this board will be making tonight.
So if the plans were amended to remove kitchen and whatever else and just have a room in the second part of the garage, would that be possible?
That actually doesn't come in front of us.
Gotcha.
I think is what he's saying. We're not making a decision on that.
Okay, no problem. Just clarifying.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Milton?
Yeah, I had a question with regards to if the commission is not going to vote on this until February, we would be ahead of ourselves if we were to grant approval to them and they tweak it and they come up with something totally different than what we thought it would be. So I don't want to hurt the applicant. It would appear that in their best interest that they should wait until the commission has decided, and then we could vote on this. Anything before that would be, sort of out of order.
Well, that's why we're doing a variance. It's a request to allow us to do it something before the code's changing.
But we can't get ahead of the commissioners.
But the commissioners, if it's approved, it would increase
But
up to 35
we don't know what the
feet.
commissioners will approve. We have no way. We can't get in their minds.
All right.
And what they're going to
That's
do.
okay. He's making a public statement. Not necessarily to you in particular. I will say I have been around the neighborhood. I have seen some of the new homes that have been built, and the neighborhood has changed quite a bit as far as what's coming in. Much larger homes, larger height.
And the
I don't
neighbor
know
has
the
a
height.
very big height.
Yeah, I don't know the height of the other homes, but I noticed that with my drive-by that
It
there
was
has been a
about
lot of
30
larger
feet.
homes.
I actually measured it.
Okay, let's see if there's any other questions, and then we'll bring it back for a vote.
Thank you.
Pat, your microphone's still on.
Oh, sorry.
Milton, your microphone's still on. Is there anything else that you want to add or ask? If not, I know Doug does. He took off his glasses, so he's getting serious. Okay, go ahead, Doug.
Currently, they're asking for a second floor as well as a height. or there is no current rule for the height because you can only currently do a single floor?
No, the issue in this zoning district is that it's in the annexed area and it has a different definition with regards to height. So 2 stories is permitted, but how the 2 stories are measured is less than the height in other zoning districts. So they want to go higher than what the code would define 2 stories in these
For-
this
for the
district.
main house.
So they can do 2 stories, but it can't be as high
And
as
the
they're
garage
proposing.
is
Can I ask a question, please? What is the height right now that
20.
we allow?
20 feet.
20 feet,
We're
right?
asking for 29.
For 29. So we are asking actually for nine feet
feet only.
only.
No, you're asking for 50% more.
48.
Okay, as you wish.
If you put it that way, correct.
Okay, is there any other questions of the applicant?
Yes.
Oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry.
I heard her voice. I didn't know who.
I'm the only girl.
Well, it
I
should
have a
go
deep
with
no
voice.
sleep,
I have a
Pat,
deep-
no
I have a
sleep.
deep voice. So I just want to get this straight. Dwayne, what you just said is that if this property was somewhere other than in the annex property, if it was a single-family residence in another district, it would be allowed to be higher? And how much higher would it be?
Well, it depends on the zoning district. What is the typical height in the RS?
35 feet.
Yes.
So it's just because it's called two stories here, under the old annexed zoning code, 2 stories was 20 feet, 10 and 10.
That's
but
correct.
But 2 stories somewhere else, it doesn't say 2 stories somewhere else. It'll say 35 feet.
35 feet, yes.
Okay, all right.
Like if you're a basketball player, it would be not good for you. It's like the height wouldn't work.
Okay, Fred?
Yeah, I was going to focus on the fact that the application did not provide, as they are required, the narrative to all 5 reasons why we should grant the variances tonight. And I think the one that stands out is that it is what they're asking for in the additional height, and they're asking for the second floor of the garage is a self-created situation that they are not supposed to be presenting to the board for us to make that decision. There's all kinds of other things. There's no special conditions as to why we should allow them to have the height, in spite of the fact that there are homes on the north side of Riverland that are taller than 20 feet. And I
Let me stop you for 1 second, Fred. I'd rather, if we can, let's focus on any questions for the applicant, then we'll just bring that back in the discussion
Okay,
here.
that's
But-
fine.
But does that tie into another question for the applicant?
No, other than I ask why they didn't fill out the form that's required.
Okay.
I was guided and I filled everything out as much as possible due to the time frame that we had. So what is it that I made a mistake with? Because I was guided by Ms. Crawford. I don't know.
Now, I'm not going to get into an argument, but you did not answer the questions that are required.
Okay. Is there any other questions for the applicant before I bring it back to the board? Okay. Milton?
Yeah, I just wanted to, wouldn't it be better for the applicant and also for the city to table this and let them come back at a later date? And as opposed to us voting this down?
We could ask the applicant that.
He lives in Denver.
You know,
He flew just for this meeting
Excuse
last
me.
month and now again.
We had a meeting last month, and the meeting was canceled because there was an error in the what was it?
So apparently,
We
we were not told that we needed to add the additional code for the second story on the top of the garage. So we were told to cancel, so that way we can add it and refill out the application and redo everything, so that we can schedule it for this date.
Just so you know, the reason he had asked that and asked that publicly is because it doesn't look like everybody may be on the same page here, and it's giving you the opportunity if you wanted to bring it back at that later date. But if you're here and you're ready to move forward, then we're just going to move it forward. So
Would you consider it, because I do not live here, I live from Denver,
Right.
And
I'm sorry, give me 1 second. I think the Assistant City Attorney wants to speak on
No,
something.
I just wanted to make the applicant aware that our code provides that upon denial of an application for a special exception or a variance, there shall be a 2-year waiting period before any applicant may submit an application for the same or substantially similar application. So if you are denied tonight, you're barred for 2 years from bringing a similar application forward.
That is
this
for
one-
a variance.
such a lot of money every month. I'm paying their mortgage. We are paying already.
No, I understand, sir. You just wanted to inform
No,
me.
I just wanted,
Yeah,
wanted you
I
to be
understand
informed
that.
with regards to the decision that they're asking you to consider.
You telling me that, but in the same time, when you're telling me that, I am going to get hurt for 2 years.
Well, we're talking about a couple of months.
A couple of months is what I had recommended to you, okay?
They're
Is
not
if we
sure.
table it.
It's been worked on for months, and it's still
It's
not
okay.
sure.
Just giving you the option to make that decision.
I think
That's
you're
your
not,
decision.
I think you're not getting it.
Go ahead, Pat.
We are getting it. I'm
And
getting
what,
it.
what they're saying is right now that there's people that, if you'd asked me 5 minutes ago before I asked Dwayne that question, you wouldn't have been happy with my vote, and I'm not sure that you're still going to be happy with my vote. You need to get pretty much, I think, is it all
So
of us?
we
or-
have an elevator that we want to put in the property.
Th- that's okay.
missing-
Just kind of listen to what she's saying. She's helping you.
I am trying to help you.
Right.
And Mr. Stressow said, you didn't tell us what your hardships are. You didn't go down through all of the list of things that you're supposed to say, that your particular, I don't have to help you.
No.
I'm sorry, I did the application as much as I could. However, since he's not here, and I was appointed, and I had, we're in a rush.
That's okay. We just wanted to, it was requested to afford you the opportunity.
Thank
So the fact is, if you do not want to move
you
forward
wanna
with that as an
change the
opportunity,
application
then
or
we
the
could
narrative?
bring it back and we could do a vote. So it's up to you.
So I'll attempt to make it clear for you. So if you move forward, it's likely that it will be denied and you'll have the 2-year bar. All right. If you listen to what the board member says as far as delaying the application and getting it right, you can come back within a couple of months rather than being barred the 2 years. And they're trying to say that you may want to consider that as an option because it opens the door for you to possibly get your variance if you correct your application.
Well, the option is to cancel tonight and not go through anything because what you're telling me that if I do not pass tonight, I will have to wait 2 years, and it's impossible that I can wait 2 years. So I'm asking just to cancel everything. We will apply for everything again.
Can we change the application
is better.
itself and the narrative itself and come next month or whatever?
Can they supplement it?
You're better off if you're getting deferred this. You don't have to go through all the fees and everything again. If you want a couple of months deferral, it's a whatever the fee is, right? It's a minor fee, but you don't. This case will be put on hold till you're ready to go back. Basically, if you pull the case out, then everything is like zero.
Right. No, to hold it, I guess, until we
Okay.
redo the application. I mean,
Whatever we have to do to apply again.
I think you want to
Okay.
table this for a couple
For
months,
next month.
simply. Well, give yourself more than 30 days.
Well, can they just supplement their application to address the,
That's
you
what
could
I was
supplement
thinking, we'll do it.
to fix the deficiencies.
I think 30 days will be enough for us to fix the.
Some of us said we want to wait and see what the city commission is going to do with the.
but it's been like that for months.
But
though.
it's your choice. If you want a 30-day referral, you could request that, and we'll see if we're willing to grant that.
Okay.
Is that your request, 30 days?
I think so.
Or until next meeting, basically?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
To be scheduled for the next meeting, and we will put everything together, whatever has to be done.
And if that gets approved, if there's anything that happens along the way in between, make sure you contact city staff, ask for an additional deferral.
Would there be someone that could assist with the application? Because obviously, the appointed agent here did not know exactly how to complete this.
No.
Anybody?
So in a typical quasi-judicial setting, the staff is not the proponent of the application. So they can
Right.
point you to the portion of the code, there are 5 criteria that's listed in that portion of the code, and you just need to answer all 5 of those criteria. What the board has mentioned, at least one board member, is that your application did not.
Because we
You did not
didn't get the
address
code
it.
till like almost like a few days before, and I never was
Okay.
never
I think
sent
at
that
this
info.
point,
So
I think at this point,
understand.
we're going to have to move on, so I'm going to let
Thank
you
you.
sit down. We're going to bring it back to the board. We're going to see if somebody wants to make a motion.
I make a motion that we table this until after the commission has voted. That way it's clear as to what our decision should be.
Second.
Okay, if you do.
So Member Jones, if we can have some clarification on that. I'm not aware of any ordinance scheduled to go before the city commission. I did hear the testimony of staff saying that something is in the works. So are you suggesting that?
Let me suggest maybe 90 days so that we have clarity as to, so we can make a good decision.
Okay, 90 days. Then.
Otherwise-
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a
Thank
motion
you
and a
for the
second.
clarification.
Any discussion on that motion?
I think that they want to come back earlier, and I understand the interest in having the city commission move on this before and take it out. If they did what has been suggested, then it's not even going to come back to us. But knowing how fast some of these ordinances get written and get through the planning and zoning board and through everybody else, I hate to put them in a position where they're just sitting there and can't do anything until the city.
When we're not, that's not what the motion says. The motion says a 90-day extension, regardless of what's happening on the outside.
Well, I think maybe 60 probably would. I'd be a little more comfortable with 60, but.
And they've asked for 30. So, well, let's take the motion that's on the floor. Right now, the motion is for 90 days. So let's take a vote on that motion, and if it, see where it goes.
And we're calling it a deferral?
Deferral for 90 days, or deferral for, is it 90 days or 3 meetings? Do we miss a meeting 1 month?
Let's make sure they understand.
Guys, are we missing a meeting 1 month at all?
Yeah, I just want to make sure the board is trying to table it, and whatever time you're tabling it for, they cannot come back till then. So let's be clear.
But do we have a month that we don't have a meeting?
Not that I know of, every month.
I just want to make sure
Unless it's
if
being
we're
ta-
saying 90 days, it doesn't push it to 120.
No, it would be
Math is
December,
okay.
January, February. So the meetings are there.
Motion is 90 days.
Yeah,
90
let's
days.
take our 90-day motion first. If it fails, then we can come back to something
Let's
new.
defer it to meetings certain, like in the month of Feb or January, February. So the days exactly, where it falls into
Right.
the meeting in.
February.
I think he's suggesting
front.
months rather than days, so that
Okay.
that it falls within
It could be 92 days.
I'll
or-
restate my motion to be in February of 2024.
The Board of Adjustment meeting of February 2024.
Yes.
That would be more.
Comment?
Yeah, let's still take a comment, Fred.
The ordinance, as it might be revised, is not even written, is it?
It's in the process of writing. I have seen.
Okay, so it's in the process, and then it has to go to the Planning and Zoning Board whenever that
Chair-
occurs.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair,
Chair-
the motion before us is a
Okay.
February extension, not when anybody approves any future ordinances.
And I want to ask this one thing before we take it, just for clarification, Dwayne. When we say, you had mentioned it before, we have a motion of 90 days. And is there any way that, and I'm not sure the motion maker is going to agree, but it's just, is there any way of saying up to 90 days? So this way,
the
if they were
meeting in
prepared sooner.
February, it's on the February 14th is the date when the next Board of Adjustment meeting is in February.
Okay. Well, in that case, we have a motion and a second, and let's take a roll call on that, Jamie.
And it is to the February 14th meeting, period.
That's what the motion's for.
Okay. Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Rathburn?
No.
Mr. Stressoff?
No.
Vice Chair Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
No.
And Chair Elfman?
No. Okay, motion fails. Do we have a new motion?
Failed.
I'll make a motion that we defer it to the January 2024 Board of Adjustment meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion on that?
Just want to get the rest of Fred's point across that regardless of what the city's trying to do and trying to get a city commission approval, it could go 6, 8, 10 months before that code's changed. And I think that's the point that Fred was trying to get across. I understand the angst of these individuals wanting to get it done. I can see the vote on the board. If I might make a suggestion, get a land use attorney. Okay, when you come back to see us, I think you're going to make a lot more progress. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so it's best keeping where we're at. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion?
Call the question, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Jamie,
And this is to the January meeting.
the January meeting.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Ms. Rathburn? Yes. Mr. Stressoff?
No.
Vice Chair Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
No.
Chair Elfman?
Yes, motion passes.
5-2 passed.
Okay.
You're better off not.
We're done.
We're done.
You're probably best like this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next case, case number 231-00001, address 2512 Southeast 21st Street. Disclosures. Milton?
No. None.
Doug?
None.
Bob?
None.
Myself, none. Caldwell?
None.
Fred?
Site visit?
Pat? None? Okay. There we go.
Good
Andrew.
evening, good evening, Chair, members of the board. Andrew Shine, representing the property owner. The property is located at 2512 Southeast 21st Street. This is in the area just across from the port. This is the particular house. It doesn't look very pretty in this photo. It had been demolished when this aerial had happened. But this is the house. It's in quite a unique area. It's one of the only houses in the city that fronts a beach. One of only 5 or 6 on this strip. The reason we're here tonight for the variance, and we're requesting a variance of a 15-foot rear yard setback rather than 25 feet. The real reason for this is awnings. The awnings here are circled. The bottom part of the house itself has been permitted. Permitted and approved at a 15-foot rear yard setback. The awnings, however, have not been approved yet because the city still states that the setback here required is 25 feet, and we'll go through that. It is a little confusing. But the real reason is to get the awnings and the covered porch on the second floor. I went through old permit plans for all of the houses on this strip, just looking at the uniqueness of them. These are the overlaid old permit plans, but we'll go through them individually. All of these, I don't know if you can see and zoom in a little bit, but all of these houses were built at a 15-foot rear yard setback. All of them. We looked through the old code, the old R1 zoning district, and it's the same as today. It required a 15-foot rear yard setback or 25 feet when abutting a waterway. However, these were all built at 15 feet. So there's a little mystery of how they were built. I have some theories that were explained in the narrative, which we will go through. But this is just permit plans. Let me zoom out. Permit plans for all of them, all highlighted 15-foot rear yard setback. They had nice names. They were all built by the same developer. I believe his name was Dreyer. And they all had nice names, Montego, Tortuga, another Tortuga, Windward. But they were all built, all the ones I showed were built at a 15-foot rear yard setback. This is the survey of the house before it was demolished. The house was in very rough shape. The cost of repairs for it were exceeding what would be reasonable instead of just building a new house. But this is a survey of the house before it was demolished. 15.1 foot rear yard setback. The original plan shows 15 feet, but surveyors play around with 0.1 every now and then. But it was originally built at a 15 foot, and we're just asking for it to be allowed to be a 15 foot again. The three potential scenarios of how we even got here is that, one, my theory is that the property does not actually abut a waterway. The property abuts sand. It's a beach. The city defines a waterway as something navigable. The tide does go up to the seawall every now and then, but it really abuts a beach. It's sand back there. My first theory is that when this was originally built in the 1950s, the city did not consider this to be abutting a waterway. I think that was the proper interpretation, but zoning chiefs and zoning administrators do change over time, and interpretations change over time, though I still truly believe that this does not abut a waterway as defined in the ULDR. So that's my theory of why we're here and needing to ask for a variance in the first place, is that zoning staff says it abuts a waterway. We don't think it abuts a waterway, and I don't think previous zoning staff thought it abutted a waterway either. This is the R1 zoning district. This is the pre-ULDR zoning code. It's not clear whether this zoning code was in effect in the 1950s. I met with the city clerk's office, and it's hard to nail down exactly what the zoning code looked like at the time this was built, because the zoning code is just really a snapshot at a specific point in time. The zoning code changes all the time. Though I do have the pre-ULDR, which was the day before the ULDR was adopted. So that is the most comprehensive tome of zoning codes that we have. And it has the same regulations then that it did now. It was in the R1 zoning district, and the R1 zoning district required a 15-foot rear yard or 25 feet when abutting a waterway. So we believe that that was the zoning code at the time, and just zoning interpretations changed. Now zoning says it does abut a waterway, and it didn't before. You can see the aerial here. It's not a traditional waterway, clearly. It's sand. On that point, it's possible that there was a different zoning code back then. We have no way to verify that. It is not possible to find the exact zoning code at the time in the 1950s that this was built. So we're relying on what we do have. The third potential scenario is that the property did actually abut land back then, and then it was allowed to be 15 feet because it did abut land. In the narrative, I don't know if you looked through it, but we found a lot of old aerials back then. The house you can see on top, this is a view looking from Port Everglades. There was a lot of land reclamation projects and dredging going on at the same time. You can see over here the coastline is significantly changed. This picture is very telling. If you look on the bottom here, the house is in red. On the left, that's in red today. Almost full beach in front of the house. On the right was in 1963, shortly after the house was built, and you can see that the house right next door is abutting a beach, whereas now it's mostly on. I don't know. Do you see what I'm talking about here? Okay. So it's possible that it did abut land back then and doesn't abut land now. The parcel to the south is owned by the federal government. We could not find evidence of a taking or a purchase of it, but it is now owned by the federal government. So it's possible that it was dredged by the government at some point in the 1950s. We don't know. As for the variance criteria, and it'll go back to the actual facts here, that special conditions exist on the property that make no reasonable use of the property if we don't get the variance. Here is the parcel that's in the middle. If we had to provide a 25-foot setback, this would be our buildable area. This area was not built for a 25-foot rear yard setback. The lots are only 84 feet in depth, 25 feet on the front, 25 feet on the back. You're looking at a very small buildable area that you really can't do a functional house on. And that's, I believe that would be, at least compared to every other house in the city, that would be, it would be unreasonable to force the owner to build in that footprint. Peculiarity, again, these stretch of 5 houses are the only ones in the city that I could find that even that are even comparable to each other in this request tonight. So I would say it's not just peculiar to properties in the same zoning district, but peculiar to every other property in the city. The third is that this would, if it's not granted, it would deprive the applicant of a substantial property right. Conveniently, the city just adopted a property rights element into their comprehensive plan. And one of the big ones is predictability, following rules that are clear and unambiguous. When the architect drew up the plans for this property, they drew it with a 15-foot setback. They looked at the code. They said, it's 15 feet or 25 feet when abutting a waterway. We're not. They looked at the definition of waterway, navigable. They said, we don't abut a waterway. It's sand. So they designed it to 15 feet, just as the old house was. Apparently, that's not the case, at least under current interpretations. So I believe that the predictability property rights element that the city adopted has not been held to the highest standard that it could be in this case. The fourth is the most important one, of course, and it's a unique hardship. And I think either of the two substantive scenarios that I mentioned are a hardship on their own. If the land truly was reclaimed by the federal government, which it looks like it might have been, that now forces the owner to build in an incredibly small footprint, that's a hardship that is not created by the applicant, not created by the owner. It would have been created by a taking by the federal government. That on its own, if that's the case, would be enough to be its own hardship. Or the property does not abut a waterway. This hardship would happen if the zoning administrator back in the 1950s said, yes, it does not abut a waterway, you're good, 15-foot rear yard setback, just like all of your neighbors. If 70 years later, the zoning department said, we're going to change our interpretation, that would be a hardship on its own as well, because you're now forcing you to be very different than all of your neighbors in changing the rules without publishing them. A hardship on its own. Taken together, one of these is the scenario that happened. We can't prove which one it was, but either one have their own hardships and their own problems. The last is it's the minimum variance necessary. All we're asking is to build at the same setback that it was originally built at. We're not asking for a 5-foot rear yard setback in order to get another 2,000 square feet. It's just the same setback that the neighbors were built at and that this house was originally built at. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay, I know we're going to have some questions, but let's open up to the public. Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak to this matter? No? Seeing none? Thank you. We'll bring it back to the board for any questions of the applicant.
I got a question.
Okay, and I have a few as well.
You saw it in a photograph.
Yes.
Okay, it looks like a seawall and
Yes.
water. So how can you
There's
seriously...
There's sand in between the seawall and the water, though.
There's
Yes, understood, though.
seawall, and this is your picture. I didn't take the picture. Okay, it's water, and it's a wall. There's a lot of waterways in the city that are not navigable according to the Coast Guard. They still all have 25-foot setback because it's a wall and there's water.
That would be a mistake if that was the case then, because the city's code defines what a waterway is, and part of that definition is navigable. So if it's not navigable, then the zoning department is again making another mistake. I don't make up the definitions. The city defines what a waterway is here. But regardless, that could be, again, there are two possible scenarios. One is it does not abut a waterway. Or two is it used to abut, or not abut a waterway, and it used to abut land that was reclaimed.
But they took the house down that was there, and when you take a house down, isn't it true that you have to abide by all current codes?
Yes, and we're saying the current code is 15 feet, not 25 feet. If the code is 25 feet, then we're asking for a variance for the hardship because the land was previously reclaimed there. So there are two scenarios here. Either we do abut a waterway. I'm saying that is a possible scenario. And we abutted a waterway when the house was originally built. It's possible. The second scenario is that they abutted land back then. We cannot definitively determine which one those are, but in either case, all of the houses, the code was the same back then. So something had to change between now and then on that exact property. One of them, don't know which one it is, but one of those hardships had to have happened in the last 70 years.
Did they own the house before?
They've owned the house for quite some time. Not in the 1950s, but they have owned the house for quite some time, yes.
Okay. Anything else, Doug?
No, thank you.
Okay. Is there any other questions, Fred?
Sorry. Let me add to that. There are actually the Wiseman and Mock families. They own. They live in a couple of the houses here. So this area has been kind of in that family for a little bit. changing names, with generations, but.
Fred?
I was curious, do you know who owns the seawall and when the seawall was built?
I do not. I can look on the survey. I believe the seawall is within the property line, though.
Well, I guess while you're doing that, I'm just kind of curious, is how did we get to where we are today? The house is permitted. It's probably 80% done. And how do we get into a discussion about what the setback really is?
And Andrew, I think in your presentation, I know you're looking, and I had that same question about how we got to where we are today, but you were saying that we were pretty much okay, except they wanted to do awnings, which put them, which needed the variance strictly because of the awnings, correct?
Awnings and the habitable second floor. This is not a...
Which is not built yet, correct?
The second floor is, the slab of it is built and it could be habitable depending on what happens. They're not asking to bring the structure out there. The structure on the second floor is set back 25 feet.
So it's basically just the awnings, which is the reason for the variance.
Not just the awnings, but also allowing that patio area to be habitable for human occupancy.
In the future?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's no question about the concrete, the 10 feet of concrete sitting here?
I just looked and the seawall is outside of the property line. Not sure who built it, not sure who owns it, but it is within federal government land.
I think the federal government did, and I can tell you that I used the beach in front of this house when we used to sail in and out of the inlet in 16-foot boats.
I'm told there is no beach in front of this house.
There was.
I'm aware.
And I think that they have,
I'm aware.
They have dredged the channel so much that it has accreted down in.
That's my understanding. I think that's probably the most likely scenario, is that this used to be abutting land and then it was claimed by the federal government, which is probably the strongest hardship, rather than it didn't abut water back in the 50s, or the zoning administrator. Yes, I think if land is reclaimed by the federal government, then you should still be able to build what you originally built.
Okay, I saw Mohammed and Bert shuffling through papers, so I assume you have some comments. Or were you just shuffling through papers?
Couple of houses, if you see, on the Google map, you see on the right side, on the east side, there is land abutting the waterway, so owned by the county, and so those houses, we know they were 15-foot head setbacks because they had a neighbor. They were not directly their property not abutting somebody else's property, so it's not on the waterway. So that's why those permits were issued at 15 feet on the assumption that they do not own the county owns the property, or the feds own the property. But at this point, after that, I mean, maybe as Fred said, he has been here for so long, it has been dredged, and it was all one at one time. It seems like, because it's the same ownership, but we cannot verify. But as of today, to us, the waterway is touching over there, and they have a seawall, and that's the reason.
Andrew, I have a question. Unfortunately, I've been out of town for a couple of weeks, and I didn't have the opportunity to drive by. Is the other homes there, any of them second, two-story, or is everything one-story except for this one?
Yeah, they're all one story.
Okay. I couldn't tell from the diagram. Thanks. Doug, your microphone's on, so.
Yeah, I guess the same question again. That I heard them ask it, but I didn't quite hear the answer. If they've already built this, then the plans were approved. So what has changed from when they had these approved to now, that it was going from the conversation from 15 feet to 25 feet?
I have the answer if Bert does not.
Oh, you might as well answer.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, is this, because I was not there when agenda was done, I was in India, so I'm not too familiar, that's why. This is totally new, or this was existing, just doing renovations?
Totally new. And I have, well, they did keep some of the walls. But,
okay. So,
I will say Mr. Bert Ford was very helpful in getting the permit originally approved. I think he recognized that that it wasn't really able, you couldn't really build on it without allowing it to go back to what it was. So we did keep some of the walls just to stay within sort of the non-conforming provisions. I don't want to get anyone in trouble here, but zoning staff was very nice in approving the permit for the 15-foot first floor.
And was the awnings on the permit at that time?
Yes, and zoning staff said, well, we're going to let you do your first floor at 15 feet, but you can't do the awnings. So.
Okay, so that's
Without
why
a
we're here
variance.
today, is to be able to get a variance because of the desire to put in the awnings.
And to make the second floor habitable. Again, there's no structure on that in that 10 feet. You know, you got 15 feet to the first floor and then
And
25
I'm sorry,
feet.
when you say habitable, there is already a second floor that's habitable. You're talking about additional space.
No. Up here,
Are you talking about outdoor space?
yeah, under the outdoor patio over there. A little weird function of the code, you cannot have it habitable if it's within the setback. So you can build it, you can make it look nice, you can have a little fence around it, a little balcony, but nobody can go up there under the zoning code if it's within the setback.
So you knew it wasn't right the first time and they let you do it, and now you're coming back to want more on top of that, sort of.
No. I'm sorry? We knew it wasn't right the
I mean,
first
you knew
time.
It was if the 15 to 25 was a gray area to start with.
We did, the architect did not. He looked at the code, looked at all the definitions, looked at what was previously built, and read that it was 15 feet. So I don't think they did anything wrong. I think they were hitting the head with a baseball bat when zoning first came and said you can't do it at 15 feet because it didn't make any sense to anybody. So I'm a little upset to hear, kind of animosity being thrown at worst case, it could be ignorance. I don't think it sounds like we're being accused of trying to pull a fast one here, and that's
Question.
Okay, so I'd rather, if we can approach the applicant, I'd rather we approach them with a question versus insinuations. Thank you,
Sorry,
Andrew.
my apologies.
My question is to Bert. I thought that balconies and projections like the awnings that he's talking about can invade the side yard or rear yard, front yard setback. As long as they don't touch the ground, there is a provision in the code that allows you to add balconies and or the projections into some percentage of the setbacks. I was kind of curious because when I went over there, we got a $3 million building that's already built.
Bert, I can take this one too if you want.
It's up to you.
Yes, you're allowed to project 3 feet into the setback. The
Right.
city, though, is saying the setback is 25 feet. So
Oh,
they were approved
so-
at 15 feet,
Oh,
but can't do the awning in the 3.
so if we approve the 15 feet, then the awning problem goes away.
That's exactly correct.
Thank you.
Bert, you have that look. Is there anything that you wanted to add to his answer? No. Okay. That's right. I'm going to give you that option. Okay. Is there any other questions? Thank you, Andrew. We're going to bring it back to the board for discussion and take it from there. Okay, board. We could either have discussion or a motion, either way.
I can make a motion and then have a discussion, whichever way you want it.
For motion, so we discuss the motion.
There we go.
Okay, so I'll make a motion we approve.
Second.
Okay. That's all right. So we got the motion. Read the motion, Jamie.
Right.
Oh, just motion to approve. No. That's okay. Let's discuss it. Thanks, Fred. We'll get that repeated at the end for our motion to make it tidied up.
And the discussion is twofold. One, I absolutely love innovative interpretation, and I agree with you on this one. That the waterway, it says any navigable waterway. Then the kicker is which provides access for a watercraft to the intercoastal waterway. You can't get a watercraft from here to the waterway might be there, but you can't get your watercraft there. So I applaud the innovative interpretation, and I agree with you. A second one is I've been on this. I haven't been on the board this time that long, but I was on it for a long time in the past. And the one thing that's always very hard for an applicant to show is a hardship. And in this particular case, I think that you have definitely shown a hardship, that this is not of their making. And you've gone through the various reasons why, and I agree with every one of them. So you're a very unique applicant in that I don't often find that there's been a hardship, and in this case I do. So that's all I wanted to say.
You've been called unique, so just take it for what it is. Cobalt.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, microphone then, Bob.
I guess the question is, I just wanted to concur with the comments from Ms. Rathburn, because I agree with them. Thank you.
Okay, Doug.
I'm sorry, can you just repeat the definition of navigable waterway for me? I just didn't hear what you said.
You can put the microphone back on.
Any navigable waterway which provides access for a watercraft to the intercoastal waterway. Now, the water that's on the other side of the beach provides access, but you can't get your watercraft to that.
Yeah, that's not saying that you can get a boat from your house to the intercoastal. It's saying the waterway has access to the intercoastal because we have ponds and whatnot around the city, and those would not be navigable.
Okay, agree to disagree.
This is like the main waterway in the city. This if you're going to define something as a navigable waterway, that would be this coming into the port.
Okay.
It also says that it has to abut it, and I don't think it does abut it because there's sand between this property and the waterway. So whether it's navigable or not, the question is, does it abut a waterway? And I think it abuts a spit of sand is what it abuts.
Okay. Milton, did you have something as well? And if so.
I don't have any comments. I'm ready to vote.
Okay. Well, in that case, Pat, if you just, if you please.
The motion is to approve the variance to permit a rear setback to be 15 feet abutting the waterway, where the code requires a rear yard setback of 25 feet.
And
findings?
The findings are that it meets every criteria for the granting of a variance, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is it still a second, Colba?
It's still a second.
Okay, thank you. In that case, let's do a roll call.
Ms. Rathburn? Yes. Mr. Stressoff?
Yes.
Vice Chair Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
No.
And Chair Olfman?
Yes. Motion passes.
Passes.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, is there any communication to the commission?
I want to see Fred's picture when he's out in the sand out there in front of that.
In the 50s?
Whatever babes you had.
Yeah, you know, every time they dredge that channel, that sand disappears.
Okay.
It's amazing.
So I don't think we're going to do that as communication to the commission.
think
But is
so.
there anything that is communication to the commission? Okay. Seeing none, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
It's late.